Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome to a new day, a new time, and we are so excited about today's discussion. Our discussion today is understanding 504 and IEP plans, sickle cell disease, and school in an age of uncertainty. So, this is going to be an exciting topic, a heavy topic, but one where you'll want to grab a piece of paper, even text a friend. So if you're watching, you have the YouTube link, send that to a friend. Someone you know has a child who will have a 504 plan or an IEP plan in school. Let them know about this conversation. And have your notebook handy because there will be some things that you want to write down. So I am joined today by an incredible group of people who are excited to talk to you about this very topic. So I can't wait for us to bring them on. We're going to start with Vanessa. Vanessa, come up and join us. We are excited about today. You can see the smile on my face because I love this conversation. If people don't know who I am Elle Cole. I am a mom of twins. One of my daughters has sickle cell disease, and school, the topic of school, navigating the school system, all of it has been a journey for me. And so I am going to act as your moderator today. I am thrilled to be a caregiver and to be able to talk to you about this very topic. Now, one of those caregivers who I look to for advice and to spring things on to say, hey, this is what I'm facing. The person I go to is Vanessa. Vanessa, welcome to the conversation. Can you introduce yourself to everyone today?
Good afternoon. My name is Vanessa Rhodes, and I am so excited to be with you guys. I am a retired caregiver, a retired teacher, and I also had a son. I also have a son who was diagnosed with sickle cell. And from a teacher standpoint, as well as a parent standpoint, I have a real serious interest in developing 504s and IEPs. We had the good fortune of homeschooling and going to private school, so I didn't have to have one in place. But when I was a teacher, I had students who had them in place, and I see the value of having them in place. So I'm excited about that.
Incredible, incredible. The next person who will be joining us on this conversation is Brenda Green. Can you bring Brenda Green up? Hi, Brenda. How are you? You are an incredible mom. So I want you to introduce yourself to everyone.
Yes. Hey, Elle. Hey, Vanessa. Hey, everybody. Thank you for watching. I am so excited as well to be here. I am Brenda Green. I am a wife and a mom of three. My youngest, Braden, is my sickle cell warrior and my inspiration. My husband and I founded the Be Strong group in his honor, and we're here to educate, advocate, and empower. And again, I'm so happy to be a part of this space once again, just to share our story.
Thank you so much. You just mentioned that you have a son who will also be joining us today. If you can bring Braden up so that he can introduce himself. Welcome, Braden. How are you?
I'm good. My name's Braden Green. I'm 19. I'm about to be a sophomore in college at the University of South Carolina, and I have sickle cell SC.
Congratulations. We are thrilled to have you, Braden.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Jasmine Baker. Welcome, Jasmine.
Hello, everyone. Glad to be here again. My name is Jasmine Baker. I have sickle cell SS. I have graduated, I guess, a year ago. Yeah, and I just completed my first year of teaching, and I'm headed into my second year in my own classroom.
Thank you. Thank you. That is incredible Super kudos. I remember this is our third year having the conversation. And that first year, you were still in college. Now you are a teacher yourself. So I can't wait to hear the new insights that you share with us today. And we have another person who is also joining us, and that is Imian Johnson.
Hi
Hi, Imian.
everyone. Hi everyone. I am Emion Johnson. I am a mom of one. My warrior is a SC warrior. She and forgive the noise. We're actually in the hospital. She is 19 and she is a rising sophomore at University of Alabama. And she founded Ayana's Hope Cells.
Thank you so much for joining. I know other parents can definitely relate. Sometimes when our warriors are hospitalized, the show doesn't stop. And we are just honored that you were willing to give us some of your time. We are praying and we hope that Ayana will feel better. That's definitely something that we can all relate to. So, hugs to you and hugs
Thank
to
you.
Ayana.
Thank you.
Without further ado, I want us to jump into today's conversation. So, while you all are still up, I have a question for you. Right now is a different time. You know, there was a time when we could definitely rely on the 504 plan and the IEP plans, but things seem to be shifting a bit. And I just want to know before we get started in this conversation, how are each of you feeling from your different perspectives? So I want to start with Brenda.
Okay, I figured. No. Um, I'm at a we're in that transition, still in our transition period from to into college. And just measuring the environment right now is somewhat concerning. However, it just re-emphasized to me how we have to be strong advocates. We have to get all the education that we need. And at this point, we have to be able to support each other and help and encourage and motivate. So that's a good reason in this time that we're here tonight, during doing this, because this can be an inspiration, encouragement, and education to many who may be discouraged.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Is there anyone else that wants to speak to that right now?
I guess I'll share. I could say for us, our 504 did not work when we were in school. No matter how hard we tried, it didn't work for us, and it was constantly a fight and constantly a struggle and constantly emailing and having the receipts and having to challenge and show and all of those things. So that was not the greatest thing, but I mean, I knew leading up to her getting that diploma, I just said, okay, good, God has another plan. However, transitioning to university, um, it's been great. She has a whole team that supports her, so that's the difference.
That's incredible. And as people are watching us, I just want to pause just for a second and say hello, welcome. And to you, Imian, I know this is a difficult transition, but it is one that many of us really hope for. We want to see our kids enter college and be able to navigate that. So we're definitely interested in learning how that transition is going when times are difficult. And so we appreciate you being a part of this conversation. Now, I'm going to call on you, Jasmine, next. Let me know. The thing is, there are definitely some things out of our control in this situation, but there are some things that we can control. And so, how are you feeling about it all as a teacher?
I was going to say it's definitely interesting because now I'm on the side of um, teaching, so there's a different perspective I have on it. I think the biggest thing in this time is to just remain positive and know that this is not going to be a forever thing, and just hope and pray that this won't have lasting effects as it sometimes can have. So it's positivity is kind of like a cliche thing to say, but there's not. Sometimes you just got to be aware of what you can control and not try to take things out of your control and make yourself anxious.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And I like that you've actually been in every single stage that we're going to be talking about today. You you
Yeah,
started out.
I was actually thinking about that when I was putting together my presentation. It's to see the other side of it now that
Stage
I'm a
that we're going to be
teacher.
talking about.
Definitely has a different perspective to the whole conversation that we're going to have.
Yes, absolutely. So we are just really at a time where things are different, but that's not for us to lose hope. All of these people on the panel have experienced this in different ways. We have caregivers, we have working moms, stay at home moms, we have a nurse, a registered nurse, we have a teacher, and Braden is a college student. We are so proud of you. Can you tell us how you're feeling as a student?
Um, I feel like as a student, in college, I feel like I'm getting a lot more in college than I was in high school. I guess it's a little harder to get more, especially when you have to speak up for yourself. But I feel like they're way more lenient though, because I can get like travel around campus. I can get extra time because there's a whole disability office that I go to, and there's a lot of students who actually have disabilities where they need more time on tests and stuff like that. So it's really cool in college. I feel like compared to high school at least.
So we have a comment from Dima. Dima says, Braden, I am so proud of you. We are all proud of you. You
Thank
have a
you.
lot of aunties all over the nation who we are all rooting for you and we're proud of you. So this is definitely terrific. Vanessa, I'm going to come to you. How are you feeling right now?
I am in an interesting position because I now have parents coming to me saying things that are happening to them in the classroom or not happening to them for their children in school. So, having been as an educator, knowing the importance of an IEP or 504 plan, I think it's very important. For my son, we didn't start until he got to college, and it was we had some challenges there with some instructors, and that's how come I had to come to you guys at that time for the community to give me some insight. And once we got that worked out, it was good. But you know what's interesting? His job where he works has been fantastic about following that process. But we learned it all through college. And so when he got there, he knew how to ask for the accommodations he needed. I mean, the simple thing about that jacket and the air conditioning setting.
I love that you're able to give us that perspective from a parent and a caregiver who now has an adult child who is in the workforce, because we're getting to see all the progression of this thing. The 504 plan, everybody keeps hearing us talk about the 504 plan, and all of us are talking about it from the lens of having a loved one with sickle cell disease. And so we are going to unpack this thing because you need to be aware of this information from the beginning of school all the way through work life. So it's really something that can follow you. And so I definitely appreciate what you have shared. And I am looking forward to learning more. And we are going to jump into this conversation. Do we have Vanessa's presentation to bring up? So we're going to transition this conversation to really starting to talk about what is sickle cell disease. And so, if we don't have the conversation up yet, I definitely do have, I can share the presentation on my end. So let me know if I need to do that. All right, so I am going to do that. I see a comment in the chat that says, "Hey everyone, hi Ashley, thanks for joining us." And she says, "I definitely need this information since I'm starting back college in the fall. Congratulations, we are super proud of you." Rachel says, "This is perfect timing. I'm working on this now for my son going to kindergarten with 2 schools before and after care. Lots of people who will need to know how to care for him." Absolutely. And what's beautiful, Rachel, is that the people who are in this conversation have been through it. They have been through kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and so forth. So you are learning from experts. So I definitely am so grateful that we have people who can share their story with you. So I am going to share. All right, here we go. So, Vanessa, we are up with you. We want you to talk a little bit about your experience. We're starting with you. And the first experience, we're talking about understanding the needs of students with sickle cell disease. You're going to share what is sickle cell disease, a health primer, educational challenges tied to the symptoms and stigma, addressing misinformation in schools, and how school systems often overlook or misunderstand sickle cell disease. So we are going to go to your presentation. You're going to share a little bit about yourself and you can begin.
Will I be able to advance the slides or will you have to do that?
I will have to advance them.
This looks like
This is the Word document.
Oh, okay. I think this one is a little off center, but okay, here we go.
So I'm going to try to make it a little bit, I'm going to enter full screen so that it's bigger. So let's see. Can you see it on the screen?
I can see it.
Okay.
Okay, you ready for me?
Yes.
Okay. Excellent. Well, so this is a little bit about who I am and the goofiness that goes along with me, the things that I've done. I have been a part of the sickle cell community. I didn't start when he was young. I started at college is what drew me over to the community so that I could get some help with some things that did not occur for us before. Okay, Elle, you can go into the next one.
Okay.
This is my tribe. There are two boys and one husband and me, the queen, all by myself. But I enjoy every bit of it. Okay, next slide. This is just so you can see the copyright on a book that I like to use. There is a whole textbook on sickle cell written specifically for sickle cell disease. And if you feel led, you should get it because it goes into a lot of great details. And I appreciate being able to have that information. And the second one is a book that is like a primer book that's real simple that'll let someone know about sickle cell. And this is actually written by a parent, a caregiver whose family had never heard of sickle cell until their child was diagnosed. Okay, Al. And here they are. One of the big myths about sickle cell that I'm still amazed that goes around, that sickle cell is only, and I actually heard African American disease, like it's only here in the United States. Well, it is not. It is actually global, and it hits all faces of all kinds. This is the Rhodes family and the Rose family, and between us, where there are 14 people, 8 people in this group have trait, 4 people are sickle cell carriers, and 2 people are free from sickle cell trait and or disease. So make sure that when you're starting to talk to these schools, let them know this is a global blood inherited disorder. Okay, Al? So what's going on with sickle cell? It's an inherited blood disorder that changes the shape of the red blood cells. And what's happening is the protein that's called hemoglobin, which carries the oxygen throughout the blood, is unstable. And then what it does is it becomes stiff and turns to that sickle shape, and then it is sticky. And that is what causes the crises. Now, it's a much more complex situation. There's several steps that go on when that is happening, but that is the gist of it, that you can let someone know the oxygen is not going through the blood. It is not staying attached to why it's flowing through the blood system. Before we went on, the way that, Elle, you can do the next one. That didn't quite go well. Okay, so anyway, some of you may recognize this square, the Punnett square, and it is the square that they use to figure out, okay, what's going on? What are the chances of a child being born with sickle cell disorder? They have to get a gene from both parents, so one from the mom, one from the dad, in order to have sickle cell. They can get a gene so that they just have trait. There's SS in our house, which is sickle cell disease, and then everyone else in our house is AS, which means we all have sickle cell trait. Go, Elle, you can go on to the next one. So what we do know, the ways to do the screening, and it's finally mandatory across all states, but that did not happen until the late 80s and early 90s, where it was mandatory for newborns to be tested. So the newborn screening, the test is electrophoresis. They look to see what kind of hemoglobin is present in the child. So my child was born in California, so they did what they call the heel stick. Okay. Some of the treatments that are out there now, the bone marrow transplant, the gene therapy, and we'll have some of the rest of those up so that you can see what's going on with those. But that's another thing that happens. People start hearing all these things that are going on in the news now. And so you'll still have to be able to educate and let them know what's going on, because all treatments aren't for all people and all types of sickle cell. Okay, Elle, you can go to the next one. Generally you hear about SS, but you can actually see that 8 categories there of what happens with sickle cell. So it's not just SS, it can be SC, and Braden identified himself. You can have SB, so beta thalassemia, beta zero, SD, SE, SO. I actually know children from all of them except for the SO. I haven't met a child with that particular, what we call genotype. That's how the genes read. Some of the symptoms that you'll need to look out for once they go to school: pain crises, fatigue, irritability, bedwetting can be a problem. In younger children, the hand foot disease, where there's the swelling, and then the be having anemia. So you want to look out for those symptoms, because they don't just happen at home. As you all know, you can be out and going places. What are some of the things we need to do? We need to make sure that the children get bed rest. um, some of them have scheduled transfusions. There's pain medicine that they can take, and you'll have it on file in the nurse's office. The reason you want to keep up with all these things and explain these to the educators is because the children need these things. This is not a, oh, maybe, or let's pass over it. One of the other things that they can actually do as part of the treatment is they may need to come home from school. So why do we need to go ahead and advocate for our children? Elle, if you can toggle it up just a little bit. Go down just a little bit. Down. Go back the other way. Amen. So one thing I want to really encourage you in is that those sickle cells are still in the body, whether they're in a crisis, an active crisis or not. And where can they have a crisis? If you look at that picture there on the side there, that those are all the veins in the artery. So anywhere the blood flows in the body. Touch your nose. Yes. Touch your eyes. Yes. Touch your teeth. Give us those pearly whites. Yes. In the teeth. So what I like to say is, and even in the genitalia, and you might need to let some teachers know that, because that has been an issue especially for the young boys. Let them know anywhere there is blood, the child can have pain. You can go to the next one now. My philosophy is believe the child always. With Because sickle cell hurts. It's a painful disease, and we hear about it being the invisible disease, and people can't see it. But if you start off being the advocate and going in and letting them know what goes on and what's happening with your student, let them know with love, encouragement, and support, and following the plan that is in place, our children can achieve anything. Okay, Elle? This last thing I'd like you to know is that picture is by Hertz Nasir. He's passed away now, but it's called Hope. And I love that. We should always maintain hope, no matter what's going on or how it's going on around us. I don't want us to be like the man where there is no hope and he's looking through. We can have hope. Reach out and talk to anyone on our team. You can provide books to your child's classroom, provide speakers. I would send websites for the teachers to look at so that they can have a trusted resource and be available to answer questions, because I'm sure they will be curious. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Vanessa. That was very important. And I want to, let me stop sharing. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, because I think the way you explained sickle cell disease, we think of C shapes, we think of crescent moons, we think of bananas, and we think of our blood traveling throughout the body. And, you know, for some of us, when we hear people say, "Oh, a crisis can happen anywhere blood flows," but literally that is anywhere. So, often our kids may say, "Oh, my back hurts, my leg hurts," but it can be in the back of the eye. It can be literally anywhere, in a finger. And I think that when you described it, it really helped us really set the stage for understanding our kids a little bit better. So I appreciate how you explained it to all of us so that we can then take that information and explain it to their teachers. One
I
of the
want to add
things,
one other thing with that, Elle.
yes,
I meant to
sure.
say this is yes, 1 minute they can be fine, and the next minute it can come on. And I mean, I may be preaching to the choir, but I think it's something that we have to explain to them that the children aren't controlling the blood. And they're not controlling when those cells all eventually meet up and clump together. 1 minute they're fine and 1 minute they're not. And let them know most of the children don't want to be sick. And if someone feels like a child wants to be sick, we still need to investigate what's going on and count it as a crisis, whether you believe it or not. That's why I said believe them. If they were playing basketball and the next minute they're like, hey, I need out, believe them.
Thank you so much for saying that, because we do have to believe our kids. And one thing about sickle cell that is always true is that it's unpredictable. So when we think of sickle cell, the word unpredictable should always come across our mind, because it can happen at any time, anywhere. And, many of us have had plans foiled because sickle cell wanted to do its own thing. And that's something that we all can relate to. And so I saw the question: if you are listening right now, you are enjoying this conversation, and you know that there are other people who need to listen to this conversation, share the YouTube link. So there is a YouTube link in the chat that you can copy and paste, or you can tell a friend, go on YouTube and type in Cayenne Wellness Center and click on the live tab to see the videos. So they will be able to see this conversation. If you are watching the replay, please share this conversation with others. Let people know that this is a conversation that matters to you and that is important to you. And those of you who are listening, this is a conversation that is recorded. So it will be on YouTube for a long time. So you can also share this link in the future with your child's teacher so that they also get this information as well. So thank you all for asking. Thank you all for being here. We appreciate you. So thank you, Vanessa. We appreciate all that you shared. And what I love seeing your beautiful family. So thank you for the photos and for the great descriptions. Up next, we have Star, and Star is going to really start us off letting us know the difference between 504 versus IEP plans. Know the difference and be able to explain the difference between both and defend the rights. Each one of these plans have their own rights. And so she's going to define each plan in the face of the changing federal guidance, the impact of proposed idea cuts, what it means for you, how to navigate reduction in services, what some of those accommodations are. And we are excited to see what Star has to share with us. And Star, before her video comes up, Star is a community health worker at Cayenne Wellness Center. This conversation is brought to you by Cayenne Wellness Center. Cayenne Wellness Center and Children's Foundation is a sickle cell disease organization located in California. If you don't know about it and you are in California, go to cayennewellness.org to learn more. And so if you are in the state of California, and you need an advocate on your side to talk to your child's teacher when you are dealing with 504 and IEP plans, STAR is the community health worker that you would reach out to for that assistance. So thank you so much, Tech, for bringing up the video.
Good evening. My name is Star Simmons, Community Health Worker for Cayenne Wellness Center. Today, I will be speaking to you regarding 504 plans versus IEP plans, knowing the difference, defining each plan in the face of the changing federal guidance, the impact of proposed DEA cuts, which means what does it mean for you, and how to navigate reductions in services. The first session we will cover tonight will be 504 versus IEP plan and knowing your rights. 504 Disability and ADA Act. What is it? Section 504 and the ADA defines the term handicap or disability with the respect to an individual to mean physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more of the major life activities of such an individual. Included in this definition are people who have a record of such an impairment or are regarded as having such an impairment. And so what are those qualifications? In order to qualify for a 504 plan, a student must have a physical or a mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities. Life activities can include everyday activities like walking and breathing, but they can also include learning, concentrating, thinking, and communicating. Now let's look at the IEP plan. The IEE plan, it stands for Individualized Education Program. And the purpose of the IEP plan is to lay out a special education instruction to give support and services to a student that needs to thrive in school. An IEP plan is more than just a written legal document or a plan, if you will. It is a map that lays out the program of the special education instruction, which supports and provides services in order for one to progress and to thrive in school. Now, in order for you to qualify for any type of special educational services, students with disabilities must meet the need of specialized instructions to make progress in the general education curriculum. Thank you, and I hope that has given you an idea, 504 and IEP plan. Now that you have been given the definition of 504 and IEP, I hope that you would have the information that you need to be able to make a sound decision in what is best for you and your loved one. Thank you for joining us on this session of 504 versus IEP and knowing the difference. Now, let's look into this second portion, defining each plan in the face of changing federal guidance. As of today, there has been no immediate changes. Existing rules still apply as it pertains to the 504 and IEP rule. As of June, all existing Section 504 regulations remained in full force. No guidance has yet been modified when it comes to the 504 plans and the IEP. They both are still intact. And under the current rules, if a student qualifies for IDEA, the IEP can still fulfill the Section 504 requirements. Otherwise, a separate 504 plan is used for accommodations. And so this approach continues to be intact and remain unchanged. The impact of proposed idea cuts. What does it mean for you? Proposed regulations may bring changes in the future, but as of right now, everything remains the same. The U.S. Department of Education is working on the first update to Section 504 regulations in nearly 45 years. That's correct, 45 years. And it's expected to shape the eligibility criteria as well as evaluation timelines, definitions, and as well as discipline protections. And so it's anticipated that updates may include new languages replacing the old language of handicap, considerations for mental health accommodations, evaluation process deadlines, tech accessibility, and disciplinary safeguards. So let's stay tuned and see what happens. Violations and how to file a complaint. Understanding the complaint process and procedure in special education is vitally important to the success of your child. Violations do occur, and we must be prepared to take action when they do. First, let me give you a few examples of violations that could, may have, or already have occurred, and may occur as quite often than you think. The first one, failure to implement the IEP as written. Failure to provide appropriate accommodations. Failure to provide appropriate services. Failure to provide services in a timely manner. Failure to place the student in the least restrictive environment. Failure to include the parent in the process. Failure to comply with state and federal laws. These are just some of the violations that may have already occurred or may occur. So the question is, how should I handle a violation or violations if they occur with my child? Well, here's a few things you can do. The first one is contact the school district. There is a chain of command. So you have first the teacher, the principal, the special education director, the director of pupil services, the superintendent of the school, and the school board. Now, school district complaints do occur at the secondary level, which is at the district itself. And there you can search the school district's website and look for whatever formal grievances procedures they have, and then file your complaint with them as well. Next, you can go to the state compliance complaints. Each state should have a State Department of Education, and there on their website, they will provide information on how you can file your complaint. Next, there's state complaints when it comes to the professional boards. Those boards, again, are at a state level, and they cover licenses such as for school nurses, occupational therapists, physical therapists, as well as certifications for teachers. And then we have what we call FERPA complaints. It's a friendly reminder that educational records are governed by FERPA. So you have to file that complaint with them as well. And then lastly, the Office of the Civil Rights complaint. Everyone has a right to contact the Office of the Civil Rights. And therefore, there are federal laws that apply. So if you go to the Office of the Civil Rights website, you can file your complaint directly online, and they have up to 180 days to respond to your complaint. So keep in mind, these are all the areas in which you can file a complaint at any of these areas that I've given you. And then other IEP complaint options you have is that you can seek out an assistant of a special education advocate. a good advocate that knows the special educational climate in your specific area. And that is why I'm here today. Kayan Wellness is here for you.
That was great, Star. Thank you so much for sharing. So, when I think of 504 plans, I think of the guideline, the federal guideline for public schools that they are supposed to provide accommodations when your child has an illness. And I appreciate the way Star broke it down with IEPs. There are 13 illnesses that are on the list. And I think that we have to be willing to understand that IEPs deal with learning differences and learning challenges. And a 504 plan is letting the school system understand that, you know, these two things. So your child may need a 504 plan, but they may not need an IEP. So you have to really understand the difference between both. And the way that was explained was great. I also like knowing that a 504 plan, even though as your child matriculates through college, it's not called a 504 plan, but when they are in elementary, middle, and high school, it lays the foundation for the accommodations that are provided in college. So having one in high school will definitely help. That was also great to know as well. So I appreciate that explanation. We're going to move on to Emion, who is a registered nurse and also a sickle cell caregiver. And she's going to share with us a little bit about that transition process and what happens when your child is hospitalized and the new adult transition is put into place where your child moves from pediatric care into adult care. We call that transition time in our community. And so Emion is going to talk to us about that a little bit more. She's going to share from her perspective, which is a caregiver and also a registered nurse. Hi, Emion.
Hello, everyone. So, firstly, I want to say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Um, as Elle said, I am a caregiver, and my warrior is a rising sophomore. So, to the one parent that is going to kindergarten, I just absolutely understand because I was that parent that, and I was not a nurse at the time, but I was that parent that showed up to the school with a big bag, some books, some handouts, and all her medication. Um, and they actually laughed at me, but I didn't care. So the next step I did was I held workshops every year for the educators. That's another thing that I did. And then, thirdly, what I want to say is because we were a dual military family, we started transitioning early. So I feel like our whole life, our whole lives together as a family have been that transition. So, what I want to talk about today is, or this evening, is how when your young adult now leaves home and you're preparing for the unexpected and the transition role from pediatric to adult care. So some background. In our area, we go to what the hospital is called Children's Hospital of the King's Daughters, and we have been here since she was 2 months old. Um, we don't have a comprehensive sickle cell center in the area, so what happens is they hold on to them until they're 21. And we were aware that when she was going to go to school, that she was going to transition into adult care. So we set everything up. When she went, she was 17. And so they did not see her until she turned 18. So there was a hospital right next to her school, like 7 minutes away. We went to our first appointment. We did all of that. But the comprehensive center is over an hour away. So what I want to say about it is, I think the big takeaway, um, if you could just keep this in mind, is always be preventative. So imagine, imagine getting a call that just stops your heart. You're a college freshman, your child is in the hospital, 11 hours away, and you can't get there fast. You can't fix it. You're not the first call. You might not even be the second because legally they're now an adult. And I remember sitting in orientation and they actually separated the parents from the students and they said, listen, these are adults now. So you're actually leaving your baby here. However, she goes to school in Alabama and the legal age is 19. But what we did was I asked her how she felt about me helping her in times when she was unable to help herself. And she said, um, yes, I would like you to still assist me. So we signed all the paperwork. FERPA is important to have. And she CC'd me on all correspondence to her professors so they could know who I was. In times that she was unable to communicate, I would have permission to talk to them. So all of this happened to me. And in the moment of understanding that she was in distress, everything we thought we prepared for suddenly became real. It was raw and it was very personal, not just for her, but for our whole family. So I just want to share with you today what that experience taught me about healthcare, about communication, about transition, and how we can do better for our warriors and ourselves when we prepare early, communicate clearly, and stay involved long after they move in, after the move-in date. So the shock of a transition. Um, so the truth is, 18 doesn't make everybody ready. One thing I could say to my warrior was she was ready. She built her village before she even went to school. She had specific people to do specific things. Somebody knew where her car keys were. Somebody knew where her wallet was. And I had always taught her to have a go bag. So she had the go bag ready. They knew what to put in the go bag, how to replenish the go bag. And she also had somebody that would go with her the hour and a half away, um, if somebody was available. If not, she got in an Uber and she went the hour away to the hospital. So, I mean, in the pediatric world, everything is self centered. Um, but at 18, legally, yes, your child is an adult, but emotionally, sometimes developmentally, not always, especially when they have a chronic condition or any health diagnosis or any medical complexity that follows them through childhood. In the pediatric world, everything is family centered. You're in the room, you're part of the discussion. Doctors talk to you, not just your child. It's warm, it's familiar, and then overnight it changes. Now your child has to navigate adult systems alone. So when she was hospitalized, here's what happened. She was a freshman, 11 hours from home. She got sick, really sick. She ended up in the hospital. It was serious, but manageable with the right care, the right information, and the right support. So we knew all the information, but she didn't exactly get the right care or the right support from the provider. He actually said to her that she was contributing to the opioid epidemic. But here's the catch. I wasn't automatically in a loop. She was 18. Her doctors didn't have to tell me anything. Her records weren't mine to access. And in that moment, while she was scared and in pain, I had to find a way to support her without overstepping boundaries while also making sure she was safe. That balance is brutal because as a parent, your instinct is to rush in, take charge. But this new stage, it demands a different kind of strength, the ability to let go while staying connected. So start the transition early. What I learned and what I want every parent to hear is this: don't wait for the world to transition your child. Start early on your own terms. Start having real, open, sometimes uncomfortable conversations when they're 5, 6, 7, 15, 16. Talk about it because you have to constantly reassess. I feel like we needed to reassess every year, especially being a military family. Um, and then there's the understanding that yes, I am a registered nurse, but I'm a caregiver first. I'm a parent first. So when I walk into the ER, I am not a nurse. I don't identify as a nurse. I don't talk about being a nurse because she needs care and she needs my support. Sometimes it could be debatable. Sometimes you get the asinine comments. Sometimes you get the look. Sometimes, so I just take all of that out of the equation and I'm the caregiver. So you want to talk to them about how to fill prescriptions. She was filling prescriptions way before she went off to college. She knew what her insurance card was. She had an idea of what the insurance covered and what it did not, and what to do in a medical emergency. I think we should have a conversation about medical alert, either bracelets, necklaces, whatever. That's something we don't use, but there are times when they cannot communicate. So then what do we do? Also, I want you to know, I want to put out there because there's not enough conversation about this. There's a free program that Medical Alert has for our warriors. And if it's underutilized, it's going to go away. It's a free program where there's a QR code and it has the information of the warrior on the card. You want to have them speak to a doctor. So when they're in these appointments, you should not take over the entire appointment. What I did when she was 5 and 6, because I prepared her as if I deployed or her dad deployed, both of us might not come back, or one of us might not come back. So she had to learn how to communicate with adults and with her care team. So when they were talking to me, even now, they did it yesterday when we were in the ER. She started talking to me, and I said, she could tell you, she can talk to her. So, and then what privacy really means at 18, and you have to have those conversations, and don't just talk about your child. Don't just talk to your child, involve them. Let them taking small steps while you're still there to coach them. This isn't about pushing independence too soon. It's about building it brick by brick before they leave home, because once they're gone, it's much harder to teach under pressure. Have open and honest communication. This stage of parenting an adult is like learning a new language. You're not the boss anymore. You're a guide. You're a sounding board. You're a safe place. You're a safe place. That's that only works if your communication is strong. And our family made a conscious choice to have quality conversations, not just surface check-ins. We talked about mental health and and about what scared her, about what she needed from me and what she didn't, and what she actually wanted me to do and not do. The conversations build trust, and when she ended up in the hospital, that trust meant she wanted me involved. She gave me permission for doctors to call or for me to call them. She shared updates because we'd already practiced what partnership looks like. You can't control everything, but you can create the kind of relationship where your child knows they're never alone and then they never have to choose between independence and support. Stay involved strategically. So now you might ask, how involved is too involved? I believe staying close but not controlling. At her university, I'm engaged, but I'm not hovering. I'm connected with the health services team. I've learned their processes and offered support where it's appropriate, not to override her, but to be an informed ally with her consent. Sometimes this means helping her prep for a doctor's appointment if she has questions or things she just does not understand or she feels like they don't understand her. Sometimes it means stepping back, but either way, I'm there in the background, ready, steady, and informed. Universities want family support as long as it respects student autonomy. The key is collaboration, not command. So I was always involved at her school. We started in a private school system and then we went over to public school system. So things like we had an accommodation plan at the private school. When we went to the public school, things like IEP 504, I honestly didn't understand that. So it was a learning process, and we also hired an advocate when we understood that it was not working the way it was supposed to work, and it still was a process. It still was almost a hardship to get things done. But then my daughter was also on the superintendent's council, so she would email him and he would email her back. But there were times when I had to go all the way up the chain. I had to involve my school board member. I had to, do things that I just didn't think I should have had to do. But I liked how Star Jones broke it down. And she said there are different steps you can go because I felt stuck. I didn't realize that I could go on. Um, so the bigger picture is, it can be beautiful because when done right, this transition deepens relationship, but builds resilience. It creates adults who know they're capable, loved, and supported. And my final thoughts are the day my daughter was hospitalized was one of the hardest moments I've faced as a parent. But it also confirms something. Preparation matters, communication matters, and love doesn't end at 18. It just changes shape. So here's what I want to tell you. Here's what I want to tell every parent, every caregiver, every grandparent, and family listening. Start early, talk often, empower your child, be ready for the unexpected, and never underestimate your role, even from 11 hours away. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Imian, for sharing that your experience and your expertise. We appreciate you. I know you mentioned the medic alert. Inside the comment section, I put the link to that, and we will definitely highlight that. That link is found on sicklecelldisease.org, and you can go there. In the comment section, I will also add that link again so that you all will have it. And I just wanted to say thank you for sharing that. Next up, we have Brenda and Braden.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, Elle. Want us to take it from here?
Yes, perfect. Thank you so much, Brenda.
Okay, good evening, everybody. As I mentioned earlier, I am so excited to be here just to share a piece of what we've learned to date. And I'm just as excited to have my warrior, Braden. Say hey to the people.
Hey.
With us. And we're just going to share several different things. First, I'm going to start off talking about building a paper trail. Okay. Document. Then Braden and I are going to have a conversation. I'm going to ask him some questions like interview style, just to give you some insight from his perspective, because I think that's important. When he was younger, I kind of wish, I did have some who could share their experience, so I can learn and kind of guide him along during his younger years. So we're going to have that conversation. And then we're going to have a brief section on when to push and when to pivot. So we're just going to jump in, and we're going to talk about the importance of documentation. And as a caregiver, And just in my profession, because I do have a full-time job, I believe in document, document, document. And with our nonprofit, we encourage our caregivers to write down everything. And because we're not going to remember everything, we may think we will. And we are 19 years in the game. And my 19-year of mothering Braden brain isn't the same as 19 years ago. So it's important to ask Braden, you remember this, buddy? You remember seeing this? Because I
Yep.
wrote down everything. And then, so let's talk about some tools. And here's a little journal. But I wrote down everything. And in the beginning, 19 years ago, ER visits, I had those spiral notebooks and I wrote down every doctor, every nurse, every staff, what his temps were. I measured his temps every morning. So from the hospital perspective, I wrote down everything. From the school perspective, use your tools, whether it's you want to write it on paper, or now we have our app. And Braden, what is your tool that you use to schedule your doctor's appointments?
Um, I will either go on my chart or I
Mhm.
would just call in person, really.
Yes. So my chart is important. My chart is key. What about your medication, refilling your prescriptions?
I would go on my Walgreens app
App.
or I would either do it in a doctor's appointment.
Right, exactly. So we have so many tools. There's an app for everything, right? So if you want to write it down on paper, fine. If you have your iPhone and use your apps there with your notes app, or even I've transitioned over to OneNote, and where you can create tabs and sections and highlight and bold and do everything. So it's important to know the tools. You can have binders where you can include all of your documents from school, your 504 plan. And just to back up, Braden had a 504. He attended public school from first grade until he graduated from high school last year. And so we documented everything, and it is so important so that you can refer to your notes, so that you can see the changes, so that if staff changes at school, you'll have all of that written out. Sometimes there's a substitute. Sometimes there's a new principal, new guidance counselor, new nurse, and you want to refer to something in the past. Sometimes you may have an intermittent homebound approval, but you get the school staff that's calling about an excuse that you didn't submit when you know you submitted it. No problem. Either it's going to be in your binder or it's going to be in your my chart where the doctor writes the note there and you could forward that on to the school. So it's important to document. It's not all about proving you're right. It's about protecting your student. It's about making sure that if the system loses it, if the system forgets it, you have it. So it's important and vital to document everything. So I wrote down some things and I mentioned some things, but some things you can write down or document. All your medical notes or letters, and as Braden mentioned, it could be in your my chart. They can be right there, or whatever the chart that your doctors, either your specialist or your pediatrician uses. All of your 504 or your IEPs, the notes when you have your meetings, right? Take notes during a meeting. You can document what's said so you can make sure you can hold people accountable and hold ourselves accountable as well. And I mentioned about absences or illnesses, maybe whether the difference between a hospital visit or doctor's visit or ER visit, or you were able to manage it at home, but they couldn't make it to school. Document all of that information because it's important. Document, write down notes about how your student feels. You know, it can show trends. You can connect the dots at some other period, but even the small things document because you don't know what role it'll play in the future. So you're always going to hear me say document, 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 keep it organized. And again, with those apps, It's easier to keep things organized, and then they're searchable. So if you use your notes app or you use OneNote, you can search for a term, or maybe you're in a meeting and you know at one point you talked about a test, and you can search for that word and go back to those notes and refer to it. So that's important, and it's important to be consistent, and that is something I tried to do all of the years, from elementary school through middle school through high school. Tried to be consistent in my record keeping because it proves necessary, and we were able to use it when it was time to transition to college, to ask for accommodations and to support what we were asking for because we already had the documentation in place. So if you talk to me, I'm going to say document and write everything down. Use your sticky notes and use everything in order to document that journey. Did I capture everything, Brayden?
Yep.
Okay. Just document. There's an app for everything. Use your app, use your tools. You will definitely find out that they come in handy. Um, so hey, Brayden, let's ask some questions. Let's see what you're thinking when it comes down to um, lessons from your journey. As I mentioned, Brayden, we started public school in first grade. Before then, he attended preschool, and the first 3 years of his life, my mom kept him, so that was good. But we wanted to make sure that the he had the environment necessary for him to make friends, to enjoy life, to do the activities, but to do it in an environment that was safe and positive for him to thrive. And that was the goal of being that advocate during this journey, this education journey. You know, a lot of times we talk about the hospital front, but this sickle cell impacts the whole you. So this educational front is important. And we're going to just do some reflection. I'm going to ask Brayden some questions, and Brayden, you can answer them, and we'll start that conversation that way. You ready?
Yes.
Okay. Let's talk about understanding what accommodations really are. Okay. So, Brayden, when you first learned about your accommodations, what did you think they were for? And did you understand what they meant?
Well, when you explained accommodations to me, I really only understood the basics of it, just like extra time for the bathroom breaks and water breaks. But I didn't really understand the deeper meaning that they were there to really help me, like they were legal protections or really thing I had a right to do.
Okay. So, those are things you kind of learn over the years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, this was another one that I do remember, but did having accommodations ever make you feel different or set apart from other students or your friends?
Yes, they did. At that age, I thought I saw accommodations as like something that made me different or feel separated from everybody else. I wish that I learned earlier that accommodations weren't a sign that I was behind, but they were assigned to help me stay, with everybody else.
Right, right. And what kind of accommodations do you remember having? What are some,
Um,
even over the years?
I remember having the bathroom breaks, unlimited bathroom breaks and water breaks. Um, I guess extended time on like test assignments, and I was able to like, get more time on my homework and stuff like that.
Right, and make up some. So, but were you always comfortable in asking for those accommodations to use it or for the flexibility?
I knew I could ask for when I wasn't feeling well, but I wasn't always comfortable with doing it. I really didn't want anybody to think I was like different or just had these extra needs. I just wanted to feel like a part of everybody else.
Okay. But what do you think about that now, looking back, hindsight?
Thinking about that now, I really not like I don't care what anybody else thinks, but I want to prioritize what how I feel before everybody else feels about me.
Right, right. And we wanted to make sure you got to make sure you protect yourself and your health,
Hmm.
right? Okay. Um, as you got older or as school got harder, did you ever feel like your accommodations needed to change?
Um, I feel like they did, but I didn't really understand that I could really change them when I was younger. Um, Also, I really wasn't using them as often as I should have been, but I know you when I would tell you something when I would get home, you would help me and like set up with the people and help change those accommodations to make me feel better.
Yeah, we had to do that a couple of times. And I do remember reminding you because you guys, I remember sometimes in middle school, and maybe some of you had this experience with your student. I would pick him up from in carpool, and he just saved everything for mama. And so either we had to go straight to the pediatrician, or if it was too late, we would have to go straight to the ED. So it definitely had to be reinforced that those accommodations were in place for you for a purpose to protect you, to prevent the ED visits, and to prevent any further complications. And you know that now, right?
Hmm.
Yes. So, can you talk about the difference between knowing you have accommodations and actually using them in the real world?
So I had to learn that, of course, throughout my journey. Um, I really had to learn how to, because I obviously knew that I had them, but I wasn't really putting them in play and actually using them. Like I had to learn how to email my teachers, to maybe push an assignment back because I got sick or I had a doctor's appointment, to have more time on a test because I wasn't. I would get like distracted a little while everybody else would obviously finish the test before me. But I just had to learn out to do those throughout my journey. And I guess that's the difference between knowing it and knowing how to use them. I had to actually learn how to use them instead of no just knowing them.
Yeah. And possibly some things now that I'm thinking back, even if I had been aware of um, not problem, but that inability to really know how to put it into play, maybe do some role play, or maybe practice asking some questions or things like that. Saying, I have pain today, can I go see the nurse? And just reaffirming that it's important that you have access to those accommodations and to use it. But then as well, it gets you more confident in actually saying it. So it was only a year ago that you were in high school, but were there teachers or staff who helped reinforce your accommodations, or did you feel like they mostly came from home?
I feel like it mostly came from home, but there was a select few teachers that would actually help me. But I wish that more adults would help reinforce the message that you gave me, that this was just to help support me and helping me succeed instead of me feeling ashamed that I would have them.
Right. All right. And that's the thing, and that's one of the role as parents, especially when you're younger, is to form these relationships and make contacts and make sure, I had to make sure I knew who was at the district level. We had contact with the principal at each school, with the nurse, with the guidance counselor, with all your teachers, with everybody that would be involved with your education and your ability to get it in a safe environment. So That was important. So let's just transition over to more high school. Let's shift over. So, Bray, so let's go back to high school, not too many years ago, like last year. But what did you notice when going from middle school into high school? What did you notice about how things changed when it came to support and nurturing from your teachers and staff?
I guess the expectation was that like you yourself could handle it and you wouldn't have as much help as you did in previous years, of course. Like the teachers and staff weren't really checking on me the same way as they were in like middle school and elementary school because I've gotten older and stuff. So, but um they would assume that you would have it figured out already, but sickle cell doesn't really take breaks, so sometimes I would still be surprised, like if I would get pain out of nowhere, and I wouldn't really speak up like I should have been. But
Mhm.
like if it was like middle school and elementary school, I think they could tell if you weren't okay and they would ask. But in high school, most of the time it's just like you have to speak up for yourself.
Right. So that was something that you really had to practice at, and you did get it, and became more confident in your voice, and to realize that your voice mattered. And speaking up in high school because it was still different. And I tell people a lot of times, even with your older sisters, they kind of tell you to back up a little bit. And once they get to high school, yeah, you give them the ability to advocate and speak up, but that's still where your dad and I came into play, that whenever you needed us, we were there to advocate and just remind them what your accommodations are, what you needed in order to excel at school. So that's good. So, and since you talked about learning to speak up, that's a really important part. Even when the accommodations are in place, it still takes a lot to actually use them. What made it hard to speak up sometimes?
Um, I honestly didn't want to seem like I was making excuses, like excuses that I couldn't do work, excuses that I couldn't listen to them teach. But there were some days I would be in a lot of pain or completely tired and just push through my day because I didn't really have that confidence that I should speak up. But obviously, now I know, but back then I didn't really understand that it wasn't really making excuses. It was just helping protect my health.
Okay. And that's good to hear. Sometimes it's hard to hear, but it's good to hear, um, so that we can share and we can prevent anyone else who may be younger than you to be encouraged and to feel empowered and to speak up because they have to protect their health. So that's good feedback, Braden. So looking back, how do you think high school prepared you now that you just finished your freshman year in college in terms of managing your health and speaking up for your needs?
I feel like high school was the start for like me training to advocate for myself, me training to speak up for myself for problems I would have at times. Um, I had to learn how to email teachers, explain what sickle cell was, and also ask what I needed without feeling guilty. Um, that's really the reason I feel like I feel better and more accommodated in college because I now ask for more stuff than I did in high school.
Right. And that was a little tricky stage for us because, we're so used to before at the beginning of each school year going into those meetings with the teachers and the guidance and the nurse, talking about your 504 plan, what to prepare for. We're used to going midway and seeing if there's anything to change. I mean, every year from first grade to senior year, that's what we did. And here we go, college. And they didn't want to hear from mama. But this is what your dad and I prepared you for, is to be able to advocate for yourself. But we were actually pleased with your transition, and we were pleased with the university as to how they were accommodating and they listened. But it was good because we were able to provide copies of your 504, and they used that as a guide and even suggested additional accommodations in school. So let's just talk. Now you are the advocate in college. What was it like registering in college at the university for disability services? What did you learn? What's a key point from that?
Well, I learned that in college, nothing's automatic, of course. I've had to learn how to speak up for myself, submit my own documentations. I had to visit the disability office to, I wouldn't say renew like my accommodations or review my accommodations.
Mhm.
And basically explain everything from scratch. I would have to email my professors every semester to let them know about my accommodations and have them approve it. um it's obviously still hard to speak my professors, but I'm getting better, I would say, each day. um I also had to learn how to prioritize my health with time management and going to class and walking all across campus, because my campus is not small, so it's a
Mhm.
long walk. I would have to just listen to my body and just do anything if I would have like pain or anything like that.
Yeah. And since you mentioned that, what's an accommodation that was suggested by the university that you use in situations like that, as far
So
as getting to your classes?
to get to some classes that's far apart, like across campus, basically, I would use the disability shuttle that they recommended, and I would just have to go on the app, say where I want to go, say where I'm at, and they'll get there pretty fast if there's no traffic. But there's a lot of traffic sometimes downtown, so maybe if there is traffic, it'll take like 5 to 10 minutes to get there. But really, if there's no traffic, it'll take like 2 to 5, depending where they're on campus.
Okay. So, what are some advice you would give younger students and their parents that are listening? Just give
Um,
us a few. I know you wrote some down.
some advice I would give is to start teaching kids how to advocate for themselves early, just by little things, that's like asking for a break or asking for help, and eventually they'll get better each and every year they ask. um I would say make sure your 504 plan is real and working for you, not just a piece of paper in a file cabinet. And also, lastly, that your voice matters and your health is important. So you don't have to push through everything yourself. You have resources and people who wants to help you at all times.
And I think those are very good advice. And especially, I know Rachel is listening with her kindergartner. And this is something you can start young at that age and be encouraged and, just document everything, create relationships. I know it's been mentioned to build your village, build your school village, your school team, in support of your warrior, because it's important. And so you can enjoy the good times too. There will be a lot of good times, but this journey is not easy, but it becomes easy. It becomes more tolerable and easier to travel if we just be consistent. If we just ask for help and use the help and resources as Braden mentioned, and going forward. And as far as this section, Braden, do you have any final words?
All I have to say is that you don't have to earn these accommodations. You already have them set in place. So just use them when you need it, instead of feeling like you need to earn your place up to those accommodations.
Absolutely, absolutely, because each one of our students are our warriors are due an opportunity to learn and thrive, and they just need that space to do so. So thank you, Braden, for that. I appreciate it. And you know what else, Braden? Let's give some scenarios. We don't want to make you think that everything has been so good. It hasn't. It's we've had some difficult times, but we also um, took each year and we learned from the previous year. We were fortunate that we were a part of a school district that actually supported us, and the school nurses supported us from elementary to middle to high school. Matter of fact, we had the same nurse in elementary school who talked to the middle school nurse, and the middle school nurse talked to the high school nurse. Now, we had a couple of nurses in high school, but that was good. And then, we knew the people in the district office in order to, if we had to take it to that level. So it's important to build your village and know all of your contacts and write them down. But there are a couple of scenarios. Maybe you been in this scenario before, but Brady, you remember in middle school, I think it was sixth grade, transitioning over, and this was a brand new school, brand new teachers, brand new guidance counselor, brand new nurse. And so it was PE where you had to take PE the sixth grade year. And the PE teacher did not understand that he couldn't do everything in the PE class. And it wasn't a matter of being lazy, it was due to his accommodation. So, Brayden, do you remember that? I don't know if you remember the
Um,
sixth grade transition.
Briefly, I would really have to send a doctor's note to excuse myself on hard days that I wasn't really feeling well. Um, I guess the school, they said I had to participate unless I was like visibly sick, that they
Right.
could tell if I was sick or not. So
Right.
sometimes I would, if I didn't really speak up, I would just push myself through those days and do PE when I did not feel well at all, and I would just tell my mom when I get home.
Right. And when you told your mom, what we had to do was just write a note, and we talked to the teacher, talked to the guidance counselor, talked to the nurse, and that communication made a modification, your 504, and it was reinforced to the PE teacher that that was your accommodations, and we got that dealt. So document, communicate with the staff, and things went well. So communication is the key, you guys. Documentation is important, and just stay encouraged and use your village. Reach out to any of us if you need some support or recommendations, and we're here to help. And we want to go ahead and thank you, Braden.
Thank you.
Braden. And we'll transition into the next portion of this amazing course.
Thank you. Thank you. I know that so many parents love seeing you two talk to each other about this because Braden is where we want our kids to be. And so you spoke so eloquently about your experience. So we appreciate hearing your perspective. I know, it's summer and you could be in a lot of places, but you have agreed to talk to us and let other parents know. So we are all proud of you. There was definitely a comment that I have to shine. That is from Tanisha. She says, "Amazing young man. Thank you for sharing. You have truly inspired me as a caregiver of a warrior. He just started middle school." So thank you, Braden. We're going to bring Jasmine up now, and we just appreciate both of you for sharing your experience with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As Jasmine comes up, everyone, I know you all have questions. You can start putting them in the chat. As we begin to share our final segment, we will answer your questions, so start putting them in the chat. Jasmine, you have the floor.
All right. Hello, everybody, or good evening. I feel like my job is kind of a little easy because a lot of what I'm going to go over has been said before. I do, not to be repetitive, I do want to highlight some of the things that have already been discussed so far and some of the things that we have talked about in previous years. I know our theme specifically is talking about our current state of, the political climate that we're in right now. And so how things might change. So I'm going to be brief, but I want to share with you some things that has helped me over the years. Like I have mentioned, I am currently heading into my second year as a teacher. I teach second grade, so it is interesting to be, going through the system as a student who once had a 504 to going through college who needed accommodations to now I am teaching and I'm giving students 504s and honoring IEPs. So it's kind of been a full circle for me. I'm going to be specifically talking about the college and career readiness that you might need to prepare yourself for self advocacy beyond high school. As Braden had talked about, and his mom talked about life in college, I'm kind of going to touch a little bit on that and then also how it could apply to your career once you're post college. So I'm going to be breaking down the changes, which I know has already been talked about. When you get to university and you're in your career, you no longer have 504s and IEPs. You now have accommodations. So we're going to be talking about that. Definitely the support system aspect and how that could be beneficial for you, especially in this day and age where you really need support. So you need to rely on your support. I'm going to be talking about some tools that you will need to thrive after college, during college, and some of these tools can be used if you are younger or if you are older. And we're going to be talking about the bias and burnout that you might feel. And then lastly, self-advocacy. This is what it's all about. I'm gonna be touching on self-advocacy in the college and in the workplace. Okay, so what changes are we going to be talking about? Now, it is more than a change of the name. It is kind of how you approach it, where when you talk about 504s and IEPs, that is more so accountability that is placed on the school and on the teachers and on the staff. Um, when you have accommodations that is honored by the American Disability Act, that is to provide accommodations for people who might need it. And this is where you are in control. You are now old enough, you're in college, you're in your career. You now have to initiate and then manage the support that you receive and the accommodations that you do get. Now, there has been accommodations that have been listed all through the chat. I would highly recommend you go through the chat. My best advice I can give on accommodations is if you think you need it, just ask for it. It might be an accommodation, it might not be an accommodation. If it is an accommodation, then you have now asked for something that you need. If it is not an accommodation, you can have a conversation about what is an accommodation that can support you. So, really don't be afraid to ask. Something that has helped me, and I've talked about this in previous years, the biggest thing is extended time, whether that's assignments, projects, homeworks, assessments, whatever the case is. Extended time, sickle cell is unpredictable. You don't know when you're going to need extended time. You might think I used to be pretty prepared to do some assignments. I don't typically wait for last minute. I mean, everyone's different. Sometimes I will wait to last minute, but when a crisis comes or a doctor's appointment comes or whatever the case is, you might need to have extended time if you thought you were prepared, but now you're not. Um, Another accommodation that I used was accommodations on attendance. So every university is different, and I'm speaking specifically as a student in college. This doesn't, well, I guess this could apply to the workforce. If you need extended time on work, that might look a little different. But attendance policy, at my university, I went to UNC Charlotte. That was kind of a big thing, and I think I'm hearing across the nation that attendance at university is becoming more strict. Sorry. It's really up to your university, but we were very strict on attendance. We were very strict on making sure you can only miss like 2 classes or whatever the case is. So that was very important for that I had a conversation with each of my professors to let them know that this policy cannot apply to me because of my illness. So that requires a conversation. I'm trying to think of other accommodations. When you, like Braden had mentioned, when you get to college, accommodations look different. You're now an adult. You have different things to prioritize. When you're a kid, you might need like to carry around a jacket or have snacks. As an adult, you might need that too, but no one really cares if you have snacks in a college campus. Or a jacket. So things like that. It just depends. It depends on your university. Everybody is different. Um, when you get to college, you have a disability service, whatever your disability services looks like. You might have an office, or you're supposed to have an office on campus. You might be assigned a disability counselor. So that is something that you should look into. I talked about this heavily last year, so if you want to look back on previous recordings, it is important that you do your own research, that you are choosing a location in a school that is the right fit for you, whether that is location wise, if you are close to a hospital or a doctor's office, weather wise. But it's also important that you look into whatever college you're planning on going to. You look into their disability services. You ask them questions. You have conversations with people just to see what their process is like, because every college is different. Um, so that is very important. And the last part about accommodations is documentation is required. It is required through all stages, 504, IEP, but especially as you get accommodations, whether you are in college or you are in the workforce, you need documentation so that people could help assist you with whatever accommodations you need. And that was definitely touched in the last segment. Documentation is very important. I would also say, in terms of documentation, keep a paper trail. Whether you talk to people on the phone, whether you talk to people over Zoom, whatever the case is, be sure you're sending a follow up email and you are mindful of keeping a paper trail so that everyone has or everyone's in the know about what is going on, and you can refer back to whatever is said. Just send a follow-up email about what you discussed and make sure that everything is in writing. So that's going to be very helpful as you are moving throughout the years of college specifically. Moving on to support system. This is something that is going to be unique to you. Whatever support you think you might need, whatever support is available to you, I would highly recommend that you take I would highly recommend that you find community and you find a support system where you're able to be a part of people, because in this day and age we are better in numbers. And so a support system is definitely going to be helpful, but this is going to be something that is really for you to decide. So building a community, finding the right community definitely takes work. And sometimes we might not always want to do the work. I'm going to be honest. I know when I was in Charlotte, I'm from Maryland and I had to move to Charlotte for school. And it took a lot for me to ask for help. And that just means like the sickle cell community that was in North Carolina, in Charlotte, it was there, but it takes work for you to be a part of certain things. And you don't want to wait till you are sick or ill or need some help to now you're starting to reach out for people or reach out to people to get the help that you need. So yes, it takes a little work. It might be a little uncomfortable, but it is very important that you build relationships with people. That could be people at your school. That could be professors, advisors, your disability counselor. That could be your peers at work. That could be your peers at school. And let's not forget that we have all types of community organizations around us, nationwide, statewide, countywide. There are organizations that are here to help you, that are here to provide a support for you. So it again will take you work. It might be a little uncomfortable at first, especially if you're someone who doesn't really like to talk to people, but you don't want to wait until you're in a crisis or there is a crisis for you to get involved in a community. The reason why this is important is because there's always going to be someone who knows more than you, someone in that community who knows something that you might not know. So where we are in life right now, where there's a lot of uncertainty, you might not know, or you might not be getting the services that you feel like is necessary or you feel like you deserve. You might want to talk to someone who might know something that you don't know, or might be able to guide you to the right person. So that's why community is very important. It is important to rely on the people who are there for you. And things, communities like this, Kai and Wellness, having these type of conversations are very important. Keeping in contact with these people, reaching out to these people when you need something, and even if you don't need something, stay in contact with these people. That is something that can be applied whether you're in college or whether you are in a workforce or whatever the case is. Talking briefly about some tools that you might need to thrive. Again, this advice I would say can be applied to college and once you are post college and you are now working in your career. Um, like it has been previously mentioned, students and people in general with sickle cell do face bias and stigma. We know that it is an invisible illness. You might not be able to see someone in pain. You might not be able to understand someone who's in pain. It is very important that you set boundaries, that you are able to um, not just set boundaries to other people and let other people know your boundaries, but make sure you're setting boundaries for yourself. Preserve your energy, preserve your time. Make sure you're surrounding yourself with people who are here to uplift you and help you. And going back to the support, who might be able to guide you into the right direction, and not people that might not understand what you're going through. Once you're an adult, it really becomes up to you with who you choose in your circle. Um, and this could definitely set you up as you are moving from college and now entering the workforce. I can speak from my example. I have started teaching. I have a team of teachers in my school, and I have to be honest with them. Now, I'm not saying that you have to tell people your business. Absolutely not. But I was honest with my team and let them know my illness with sickle cell and what that entails. And they have been able to help me navigate my first few years or my first year in teaching. And so it's been helpful. Also, knowing how to say no, like, no, I can't do this. No, I'm not feeling well. No, this is the amount of work I'm doing for the day and then I'm going home. That is going to be very important as you navigate past, because this could be applied to college, but past that as well. Um, Use your resources. This is something that was also mentioned. Use your apps. Use the resources that are on campus to you. Use the resources that you have at work. Use the community resources. Resources are there for you to use. It is not there for you to know about and then not use. And then keep in contact with your community. I think that community is the best way as we are navigating life in uncertain times. Community is the best way to not feel overwhelmed. I'm a type of person who gets overwhelmed pretty easy. Um, with if I feel like there's a lot that I have to do, or if I feel like I'm not doing something to the level that I want to be doing something, it could be overwhelming. So staying in contact with people, making sure that you're just preserving your energy, your mental space, because we know that everything is impacted. Our sickle cell is impacted by everything. So if we are feeling anxious or if we are feeling concerned, whatever the case is, that can trigger a crisis. So we just want to make sure that even when we are faced with bias, even when we are faced with stigma and people might not understand, that we ourselves are remaining grounded, positive. We're setting boundaries with ourselves and other people, and we're keeping in contact with those around us. And then I want to talk about self advocacy. It is very, very important. I'm going to talk about it in two, with the college aspect and then the workplace aspect. We know that in college, we need to initiate our accommodations. Once you find your school, once you know what school you're going to, and you've talked to your disability counselor or whoever's in the disability office, it is your job to now talk to your professors, talk to your advisor, sometimes talk to your peers as well. They might be able to, you might be able to lean on your peers to get some notes from your peers, or maybe a lecture you missed. They might be able to fill you in on whatever the case is. So it is up to you to initiate these accommodations and make sure these accommodations are being used, and that just takes communication. So that's my next point: communicate with your professors and sometimes your peers. Um, and then seek out the additional resources that you might have and the services that you might have in your disabilities office. I do recommend um, every year, once you get to college, every year, or maybe every semester, if you have the time to go to your disability office. You should at least be there at least one time at the beginning of the school year. Show your face, let them know who you are, let them know the accommodations that you have, because they are there to support you and help you navigate whatever accommodations that you will need throughout the semester. So I don't know. I'm trying to think if I've ever had an experience where a professor did not recognize my accommodations. I do know that one year I did get pretty sick and I had missed, I believe, like 2 weeks of school. And again, with our policy about attendance, it was very strict, and I had to make sure that my professors knew that my absence was excused. So I don't necessarily think that, it was just a matter of communication, but there are going to be some instances you might have some people who might not recognize their accommodations. Just send an email to your disability counselor or the disability office and make sure they are in the loop. Again, I talk about keeping a paper trail. These things need to be documented because it is your right to have accommodations. Currently, it is still your right to have accommodations. So just making sure that you have people to kind of fight your battles for you. That is what the disability office is for. So communication is going to be very important. Moving on to the workplace, um, it is optional to disclose your condition, your illness, and that doesn't even just apply to sickle cell. Sometimes we might have other illnesses that are attached to sickle cell. You might want to disclose one thing, you might want to disclose nothing, or you might want to disclose everything. I would be very selective with who you disclose your condition to. It could be your supervisor, it could be your colleagues. I'm going to be honest, my principal at my school does not know I have sickle cell, but my team knows. That is just a personal choice for me. It has never really caused me any issues. I don't necessarily mind telling my administration about my sickle cell, but I just didn't feel like it was necessary. The people I work closely with, they know, they're in the know. So but it's up to you. It is not anyone else's job to tell you if you need to disclose that or not. However, I will say if you don't disclose your condition, in some aspects you might have a harder time letting or getting accommodations in the workforce specifically. So it is up to you. I'm not saying you can't get accommodations. Accommodations definitely look differently look different when you are now working. But communicate with your supervisor, communicate with your colleagues. Everything is about communication and keeping a paper trail. And lastly, find out about your workplace union. So I teach in Maryland, and we're unionized. In North Carolina, where I was getting my education for teaching, they didn't have a union, and so it is definitely different. If you do not have a union, it's going to be a little more in your hands to make sure you're getting the support that you need. Um, in Maryland, we have a union, so I'm able to, I know my rights. You have to read your contract, make sure you know your rights, because it's hard to advocate for something that you don't know about. So with my union, I know my rights and what accommodations I can receive in the workforce as a teacher. So it is up to you to do your due diligence. It is up to you to advocate for yourself. And I think the biggest takeaway is to stay in community with people. No one can tell you what your community looks like, but don't isolate yourself, especially during these times where things are a little uncertain. Don't isolate yourself. Make sure you are communicating with those in your community and communicating with those around you. I think that is the theme for at least my portion. Definitely keep documentation. and definitely advocate for yourself and stay positive. I do believe that nothing is forever. So even if you feel a little uncertain during these times, if you stay positive, you are on the right track. So that is really all I have. I do want to share, I will probably share my contact information in the comments because I don't want to, advocate for community and then not be a part of community. If anyone wants to reach out, um, I will make sure that I am available.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jasmine. There are so many things that stand out with what you shared. I think what kind of made me pause for a second was hearing that you didn't disclose to your administration, um, and you only disclosed to your team in your workplace. I definitely can understand um, why that would be beneficial, but I definitely think it made me pause for a second, saying, why would that be good? And so I think it's given us as caregivers and as, I'm sure there are warriors who are listening. There was someone who mentioned that she's in school, she's gone back to school. And so I think for those of us who are listening, it made all of us kind of take a step back and say, when would that be beneficial? And so you gave us a lot of great information to think about. And so we appreciate everything that you shared. Everyone, if you're listening to the sound of my voice right now and you have a question, put it in the chat. I know that we have gone, this is our almost 2 hours, but we wanted to give you just a very brief opportunity to ask your questions. Jasmine, it was terrific hearing from you. And so there were some questions that have come up, and I have gone through to try to answer some of them in the comments section. So if you are on YouTube, you can see all of the comments and see the answers. So I think that is one way to get some of your answers that you may have had. But Jasmine, it was terrific. We can bring everyone back up and have a quick conversation with them. But I thank all of you for your time. We appreciate the expertise that you were able to share today. And so I am going to go through and just mention a few of the questions that I saw. And so we are going to start with one of the questions, and it says, let's see. Does the school have to provide tutoring if it's asked for? That's a great question. That's a great question. So I did put an answer in the chat, but I want to give you all an opportunity to speak to that question. Does the school have to provide tutoring if it's asked for?
Well, they are supposed to do that. And you guys, even tutoring for students who don't have a 504 and IEP, students are not supposed to be struggling through a course. And if they need extra assistance, it is supposed to be given to them. But especially if you have it in that document, they are supposed to provide that.
Thank you, Vanessa. That is a great answer. And I just wanted to say, so I think it's important to note that the 504 plan and IEP really fall under the public school, which has been said in this conversation. Can private schools also choose to listen and provide documentation for a 504 plan and IEP? Yes, but the federal mandate is for public schools because they're receiving federal funds. And so for a public school, they definitely are supposed to. And if you are not receiving that accommodation, you will need to remind them. I had a teacher tell me my whole class has an IEP, that is just almost impossible to accommodate every single child. But your child's education is important. So you really have to advocate and push for things, and you have to remind them. In my own child's case, I had a teacher tell me, I didn't know your child had a 504 plan. And so that was it. It was in second semester that I found out the teacher did not know. And she had several teachers that didn't know. So it is very important that you speak with the teacher. So the school is supposed to relay that information, but sometimes they don't. And so it's important to talk to the teachers directly. And if you get pushback from the administration, so let's say you talk to the teacher, then you want to move to the administration, then you move to the superintendent. You just keep going so that you get the answers that you need. All right. So we
I
have a
will
new
say,
question.
I
Oh,
wanted
go
to
ahead
say,
and answer.
I'm sorry, I wanted to say, even though um, tutoring is available, I think what happens, even with a 504 or IEP, that if your warrior is doing well, they tend to find reasons why they don't need the help. So you have to be assertive about that.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. We have another question. The question is, what is the best way to help my first grader understand her accommodations and 504 plan? So I want to just start off by saying my daughter is taking a process and time. My daughter is 16 and she doesn't like telling her teachers she needs extra time. So that's something that you definitely need to start with young. I homeschooled my daughter for many years, so when I did put her in school, it has been a challenge getting her to advocate for herself and speak up. So, any of the other caregivers, or Braden or Jasmine, do you want to speak to this question?
Well, I can say from the teacher aspect, yes, I've only been teaching 1 year, but at that age, it is really up to the teacher who should know about the students' accommodations to make sure that they're receiving those accommodations. First grade is a little tricky, especially if this is like the first time they're receiving accommodations. It depending on how your school works or whatever the system is in place for them, it's going to be hard for them. They should know about their accommodations, and understanding them will definitely take time. I don't think I wanted to accept my accommodations until I was in high school, if I'm being honest. So, but it's up to the teacher to ensure that the student is getting the extra care that they need. So I would just check in uh, with the teacher to make sure that's happening. And like Elle said, keep going up the food chain if they're not receiving the accommodations.
Thank you. Thank you. Does anybody else want to answer that?
I would say, of course, we know our children, and definitely we have to make sure the school understands, like Jasmine says, the teachers. However, with simple things like we can teach them early the importance of drinking their water. Or, and of course, if they're drinking their water, they're going to have to go to the bathroom. And so just let them know it's okay to raise your hand and tell your teacher you have to go to the bathroom. And that might trigger the teacher say, oh, yes, she has unlimited bathroom breaks. Let her go. Or make her understand, oh, it's time to drink my water now. Start off with simple things like that to where she'll get more confident in asking for what um, she needs, and just educating her on why you have to drink water. And if you drink a lot of water, guess what? You're gonna have just start off with the small things, and you can build on that as she gets older. That's my.
Great, great advice. Thank you. I
I would
see a,
say,
oh, go ahead.
I taught elementary school, and at the beginning of the year, I would send home a questionnaire to parents to ask. So if your teacher doesn't send home a questionnaire, ask for a meeting and you guys sit down, all three of you together, and at that point also have your daughter start speaking too about how would you like us to and let you know that we need to go to the bathroom, and if she's having to go to the bathroom more than the other children have to go to the bathroom. So those kinds of things, meetings that that word communication, it really does help. It may feel like you're being worn out, but it's better to be worn out at the beginning than to be in the middle of a situation trying to get something straightened out.
Thank you. Thank you. Shondell says, I would sit in the class a few times. And she also says, my husband and I made a slideshow presentation for them to understand. That is incredible, Shondell. Thanks for sharing. Patrick Green, who is Braden's dad, said, during our 504 process, Braden's high school brought all of the teachers into a room with me and my wife if they were available, so we could avoid a teacher saying they didn't know he had a 504. Excellent. My son's school has what's called Red Pass. This is from Shondell. He just has to pull it out and show it and leave the class. That way they are not disrupting class. So that obviously is talking about leaving and going to the bathroom. So thank you all so much for sharing in the chat. We have one more question, I believe, and it is up. It says, I was told today that if my daughter has to take an opioid medication at school for pain, that I have to pick her up because the staff at school don't know what to look for as far as overdose goes. Is that correct? So I know we have a registered nurse and a parent on this call. Do you want to speak to that?
So I would say it depends on your state and actually your school district. Some states and some school districts do not allow narcotics in in the even in the nurses clinic because it's a safety risk. And a lot of times the school nurses are not, they get the training, but they're not, to be honest, demanding. So they're if the staff sometimes in some states, let me go back. In some states, they will teach and with the epidemic that has happened, they will teach multiple people how to use different things. So it really goes back to your state, knowing what your school's policy is, and again, like we said, creating a paper trail and going up. So then I would go to that, whoever told you that, send an email to them, have them confirming, and ask them for the policy. And if that's the case, I know for my daughter, there at one point I took narcotics there, and then they said no, we cannot have it, so I had to take it back. However, at her art school, they allowed it because she was there after hours. So it's really knowing your policies and having that open communication.
Thank you. Thank you. And Jasmine, I see that you are in California. Cayenne Wellness Center is in California. Our community health worker that helps people with 504 and IEP plans is Star Simmons, who we heard from earlier. You can go on our website, cayennewellness.org/team, and go under the staff tab and contact Star directly to help you advocate for your child in your state. And so she will be able to answer that question specifically about California. So thank you all. I see one more question. I know it is late, and so I am super aware that you guys have given us more than the time required, but we're going to answer this one last question. Does the school always have to request doctor's note for a sick day, even with a 504 in place? So I feel like Jasmine, since you're currently a teacher, maybe this one is for you.
That's going to depend on your county, your state. I know from the students, typically you will need a doctor's note. Um, for for truancy reasons and make sure that you're actually missing school for a specific reason. Um, as an employee, though, we're in my county, they are not allowed to ask why I'm taking a sick day or like I provide proof for that. But that's specifically for teachers. So because that has to do with HIPAA laws. So it's going to be up to your state and who your school specifically, and just finding out if you need to provide one every time. But typically, the answer is going to be yes.
And
Yeah,
Elle,
so
can I
just
add
to
one quick?
piggyback on that, how I would handle that is anytime you went to a doctor's appointment, ER, anything, we got a doctor's note for myself, for her, or her dad, or whoever's accompanying her. You're creating a paper trail and you're also tracking trends. And so if it comes down to truancy, like Jasmine says, you have all of this information because by state they have so many required hours. And if you cannot provide the documentation for that, then it becomes more difficult. I'm sorry, Vanessa.
Can I say something real quick?
Of course, of course. Yep.
And even for like the sick day where you don't have to go to the doctor, but you can manage it at home. And sometimes you just have to be careful with that. And it varies, like Jasmine and Ariane said, by school and districts, even in South Carolina. But we were able to get in our health plan that's associated with our 504. The doctor actually wrote that there are times when his illness can be managed at home. So they take that into accommodation along with a parent's note um, for our child in our situation. So it didn't have to be a doctor's note.
Okay. So I see that we had a question, is there a handout? So there is a handout that is available. I am going to ask our tech team, can you share it on the screen? And they have, thank you so much. Our handout is bit.ly/CWC 504 toolkit. That's bit.ly CWC 504 toolkit. So bit is bit.ly/CWC 504 toolkit. And you will be able to pull up a toolkit that will share you an overview of all of the information that we talked about today so that you can have that information on hand. And I do see that Shondell is in the state of California, and she said they do require that doctor's note. So thank you all for your time. This has been another terrific conversation. And I know it is one that all of us who have a loved one with sickle cell disease are concerned about. So, again, thank you. We appreciate you. And before you all go, we have a special announcement about Cayenne Wellness Center's 17th annual Sickle Cell Disease Educational Summit. That is now open for registration. It is going to be September 17th through the 20th in San Jose, California. So if you are a warrior or a caregiver, there is a discounted cost and you can come and enjoy. What I love the most about the 17th annual Sickle Cell Disease Summit is that you not only get great education, but you see warriors of all ages. I'm talking about from infancy all the way until over 80. And for me, that gives me a lot of joy, a lot of hope, and it is an amazing time. So if you're looking for a place to go to, definitely join us in San Jose, California, September 17th through the 20th of September. So, of course, we all know September is Sickle Cell Disease Awareness Month, and we would like you to register. So, Tech, do you have the link for that you can share with our audience? I am going to put the link in the chat for you all. Yes, it is right there on our screen. This is the Sickle Cell Disease Summit. You all are welcome to register and attend. It will be in San Jose, California. Go to the CayenneWellness.org website and read, learn, and sign up to attend. We would love to see you. Again, there will be a benefit concert. If you need motivation, if you want to feel excited, if you want to learn about the latest treatments, if you want to meet with other caregivers just like us who are here tonight, this is the place to be. You will be inspired, motivated, you'll learn, you'll be able to connect, and you will enjoy your time, guaranteed. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. And we want to say, have a wonderful evening, have a great school year, have a great work year, and all the best to you and your families. Bye for now.
Bye.